In the cool of the evening, we used to have chairs brought out and placed on the lawn leading to the billiard room under the gumwood trees. And the Countesses Bertrand and Montslon, with their husbands and children, my sister and myself, would remain for hours after sunset, listening to the thousand crickets with which the ground at Longwood seemed alive. The moonlight nights were remarkably beautiful. At St. Helena, the blue of the sky so deep and clear that it would be difficult to imagine any scene more solemn and imposing than the appearance presented by the landscape on such occasions. Either the stars shine brighter in that firmament, and the moon seems fuller and more lustrous, or it may be that the recollection of those joyous days had no cloud to dim their radiance. It was on one of these splendid starry nights, and at the time we were on a visit to Madame Bertrand, that the party was grouped about, some seated on the steps of the billiard room, others in the garden enjoying the cool, refreshing breeze. The day had been one of the most sultry ever experienced within the recollection of the oldest inhabitant of St. Helena. Suddenly we heard a lumbering, heavy noise, as if loaded wagons were rumbling over the ground immediately under us. Those seated near the billiard room sprang up aghast, thinking the house was falling about their ears. Dr. O'Meara and Major Blakeney, who was appointed captain of the guard at Longwood, rushed immediately from their rooms, expecting to find the ladies half dead with fear. All the household, some of whom were in bed, ran out into the greatest alarm. Some were gazing up at the sky, others looking stupefied with wonder and amazement as to what had caused such a commotion. Little Tristan Montslon, who had some time previously retired to rest, came screaming to his mother, declaring that somebody had been trying to throw him out of bed. The cause of our terror proved to be an earthquake, the only one remembered to have occurred at St. Helena for nearly a century. The horror this event occasioned us all can only be conceived by those who are acquainted with the island. More especially was the alarm felt by those whose friends and relatives were residing in any of the valleys so narrow and wedge-like in their form, and flanked, as they generally were, by tremendous overhanging precipices, at the summit of which enormous loose rocks threatened continual destruction to those who were beneath. It was observed at the time that had the shocks been lateral instead of perpendicular, those who resided in the valley must have been destroyed by the vast boulders of stone which would have fallen from the mountains above. Napoleon had retired to bed, and it was not till the next morning that we saw him. He asked us if we had been frightened by the tremblement de terre on the previous evening, observing that I looked pale and quiet. He mentioned to General Bertrand that he at first thought the Conqueror, a 74 lying in the harbor, had blown up, and that the great powder magazine had exploded. But on feeling the third shock, he perceived it to be an earthquake. It lasted from 16 to 18 seconds. Many people fancied the rumbling noise they had at first heard to be thunder. But when it was remembered that such a phenomenon as thunder was never heard, nor had lightning ever been seen since the discovery of St. Helena, that idea was abandoned. Thunder and lightning have never been known to disturb the harmony of the climate. To account for this, it is said that the electric fluid is attracted by a high and conical-shaped mountain called Diana's Peak, and conducted by it into the sea. I was too much alarmed after the occurrence of the earthquake to go to bed for many nights. Seeing me one day unusually low-spirited, Napoleon inquired what could possibly have happened to drive away the dimples from my usually laughing face. Has anyone run away with the favorite robe de bal? Or is the pet nurse old Saradad? What can have occurred? I told him it was neither one thing nor the other, but simply that our kind lady governess, Mrs. Wilkes, had left the island, and such demonstrations of grief had never before been seen at St. Helena. She was so beloved. People of all ranks and ages crowded to the castle to say God bless you, and safe and happy voyage home. Not a dry eye was to be seen amongst the crowd then collected. The leave-taking of our much-loved and respected governor and his family resembled more a funeral than a levee, so sad and solemn was every face. I fancy I can see them now, following the party to the beach as they embarked in the barge that conducted them on board the Havana. And when the noble frigate spread her canvas to the swelling breeze that bore from the little rock those who had contributed so much to the happiness of the gratefully impressed inhabitants, groups of sorrow-stricken ladies were seen wandering under the pepple trees of the Sisters' Walk, watching the vessel as she lessened from their tearful gaze, bearing on board a family who had rendered themselves so popular by their urbanity and kindness, which is even remembered to this day. I recounted the scene we had witnessed, and suffered with the rest to the emperor. He was quite interested in the recital, and regretted much not having been acquainted with the lady governess, as she must have been very amiable.